Hi guys, and welcome to my third part of the Kurdish Emirates series. Today we're going to look at the Baban Emirate. So the Baban Emirate, which is basically a vassal state for the Ottoman Empire, lasted from around 1550 to 1850, and it was defined by this border area between the Safavids, the Iranians, and the Ottoman Empire. Like almost all vassal states at the time, they were used to fight the Persians, and they had a really interesting sort of rivalry with another Kurdish emirate in Iran, which I'll look at afterwards. It was called the Emirate of Ardalan. So the Baban Emirate was established by its founder, Baba Sulayman, who hailed from the Pizdar tribe, and he's typically known as the founder of the Babans. As the other emirates, they had their hereditary rule from 1514 onwards, and they were nominally part of the Ottoman Empire. At the time, the Babans were the strongest emirates, stronger than the Baban Emirate or the Soran Emirate, and they were the key Kurdish emirate at the time. By the 1600s, many Baban mirs started being endowed with the Turkish title of being Pasha, and this essentially reinforces the Baban Emirate as part of the Ottoman hierarchy. However, when the 17th century came, so 1721, the Iranians, the Safavids, were in a war with the Afghans at the time, and they were disjointed, which allowed the Babans to reoccupy Ardalan and push further into Iranian territory. So in 1728, Kana Pasha, who was the son of Suleiman Beg, occupied Sharazur in this year with an alliance of the Ottoman Empire. However, this was sort of hindered by divisions within the Baban Emirate. Different candidates for leadership of the Emirates was supported by the Safavids and also by the Ottomans. So there was always sort of this division within the Kurdish Emirate. At the time also, Soran was invaded by the Babans in 1730, and it was incorporated into the Baban Emirates. So from around 1774 onwards, for the next sort of 50 years, this area of contestation swung between Baban and Ardalan here and there, based on which country was sort of stronger, the Ottomans or the Iranians. In 1784, the Babans moved their capital to Sulaymaniyah, which is in Kurdish is Slemani, and it's the second largest city in the KRG. And this move aimed to sort of expand the borders of the Baban Emirate and its empires. And the ruler at the time, Ibrahim Pasha, was known as the Pasha of Kurdistan. He was known as a charismatic personality and had an ambition for greater autonomy, and he had such an influence over the elite, he became known as the virtual Kingmaker, and he even offered to assume the governorship of Baghdad directly, because he promised to suppress rebellions, to pay increased tax, etc. However, in 1805, Abdurrahman Pasha, the leader at the time, stated that he did not seek full independence. So this sort of maneuver within the Ottoman Empire and bringing up the idea of independence led to the Kurdistan question being raised by imperial and European powers for the first time between 1805 and 1811. And in 1808, the local notables at the time from Baban, they were strong enough to press the Ottoman Sultan for the Sened-i-Itifak, which means the deed of alliance, formally recognizing their rights and their political status. By 1808 to 1810, the Baban Emirate was at its peak. And after Abdurrahman Pasha died in 1813, there was a succession crisis between Mahmud Pasha, his son, and his brother Suleiman. As the English sort of explorer Claudius James Rich had previously said about the Baban Empire, that it was in decay, he also visited Sulaymaniyah, and he also noted that it was in decay, which kind of highlights how the Baban Emirate was declining rapidly. Now, at the time in the 1820s, between the Ottomans and the Iranians, there was two treaties of Erzurum that was signed, which basically sidelined the Babans from their importance. And as with all of the Kurdish Emirates, the issue of Ottoman centralization essentially killed the Babans' ability to have this large power base. The last sort of ruler of the Baban Emirate, Ahmed Pasha, tried to fight against this. He created an 800-man strong army to defend the territories. However, he was defeated by the Ottoman Governor-General of Iraq, Mehmed Pasha, who then subsequently increased taxes specifically to make Baban's military weaker. After he was deposed, his brother Abdullah Pasha was put as a puppet governor, but his rule was largely symbolic. And by 1850, he was summoned to Baghdad and exiled to Istanbul, which marked the formal dissolution of the hereditary Baban dynasty. As with the Soran Emirate, the Baban Emirate had been like a hub of patronage for Sorani Kurdish poets, which sort of made Sulaymaniyah the capital of Kurdish culture and the hub for later Kurdish national movements like Sheikh Mahmud. And yeah, that is basically it on the Baban Emirate. My next video in this series will be on the Ardalan Emirate, and I think that will be the last Emirate video. So thanks for watching.